Oh man, what a great day! What a great day! Any day being alive is a great day, but what an extra special great day today! It's been wonderful for me. Welcome to Normal America Show. Your host Rob Miller. Now, you may be asking yourself, what an amazing intro song that Rob has there. Where did he find such fantastic music? Well, it was actually from YouTube's free use list. I've been using that song for a while. The song is called As You Were, and it's by the band Track Tribe. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, they haven't given me any money, or they probably don't know I exist. But I think that it's important when artists do things like that, that they're actually willing to put themselves out there royalty free, have allowed me to use that music for a long time. That it's important to sort of at least do a little to bring attention to them and sort of, let my audience know where that stuff's coming from. So I'm going to put the link to where you can find more of their music if you like. And I think it'd be worth me checking out. 4 or 5 of their songs I thought about using for my intro. So please don't tell me the mic is. Yeah, the mic's working. We're good with the audio. I messed with some microphone stuff a little today, so hopefully it's a little better. I know some people sent me some emails with some recommendations. I need to get back to them. I have read those, trying to implement that stuff, but yeah. Anyways, fantastic day today. Hope you're all having a good day. Today was furniture day for me, which I couldn't be happier. We got our new furniture. I'm very happy with it. I think that it fits our room nicely. My son Hank starts jumping up and down on it, and he's doing it. His favorite move is the butt bomb. So he's never watched professional wrestling or anything like that. We're still on cartoons mostly, but he has action figures. And so normally when the action figures are fighting, it's just, and I was like, you could do moves, man. He'd like do, punches and kicks. And then me being the dork I am, I was showing him, I was like, you could do Stone Cold Stunner. And here's the rock bottom. Well, the move he always did in bed when he'd be in bed with us, he'd do the butt bomb. And I don't know if you remember 90s wrestling like me, but there was a wrestler whose finisher was basically the butt bomb, and he was a sumo wrestler named Yokozuna. He was champion for a while, uh, and he would do the butt bomb. So I showed Hank some videos, and now Yokozuna's is the only wrestler he knows, and by default his favorite wrestler. So I know that the gentleman who portrayed Yokozuna has passed away, but I wonder if it gives him some amount of joy to know that all these years later, there's at least one 4-year-old whose favorite wrestler is Yokozuna. So I think that's pretty cool with all the wrestlers that have appealed to young kids like John Cena or Hulk Hogan. My son likes Yokozuna. So, oh, Blasterbot, thank you so much. Says, oh no, don't throw me in the briar patch. 10 Frank's Dinosaur Fun because Stegosaurus is neat. His favorite is T-Rex. I'm an Ankylosaurus man, and Mom likes Brachiosaurus. That's her favorite. So there we go. Kingdoms and Kobold nails it. He's also an Ankylosaurus man. Yeah, Nia Jax that wrestles now. Rikishi did it. Yep. So there you go. Yokozuna though. It'll always be Yokozuna's move in my household. So the furniture came, everything good with that. The dog likes it. The wife likes it. The kid likes it. I like it. I got a brief 15-minute nap on the couch earlier. That was nice. You got to test out the napping features. What I wanted in a couch was very unique. It was actually difficult to find. Here was my criteria. I wanted a couch that the legs were very low to the ground. That way my son can't shove his toys underneath it. So that was step one. Then I wanted one where the cushions don't easily come off the back or the bottom of it because Hank takes them off and then hits you with them. So we found that. And then the third thing I wanted was armrest that you could basically use as a pillow when you're napping. The armrests aren't the best on this couch, but it had the other two features, so I was willing to compromise. It's sort of a sectional. So that's what my wife was looking for. So it fits nicely, though. It fits our room nicely. And there's a dinosaur with 300 teeth. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, let's not even, let's, Hank will go wild for that. So, is there a way to donate to me other than evil YouTube? Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? I do. I do. The Rock. Thank you, Brock Van Wagner, for $2. Yeah, I mean, The Rock was my favorite wrestler when I was a teenager. Yeah, you could donate to PayPal. I go to PayPal. I'm just Rob Noor on PayPal. Uh, and I'm going to be setting up a PO box here in a short amount of time. So if people want to send me checks directly to the PO box, that's fine. Even though, as you know, from the pro-Ukrainian people that were spamming my address the other night, my address can be found, but I'd prefer not to publicize as much as possible. So we're gonna get a PO box near me. Be a little safer, I think, for purposes of getting mail. Yeah, the natural disasters, earthquake, typhoon. Yeah, my brother-in-law is a welder. A good friend of mine that lives up the street, he actually went to school for underwater welding, though he hasn't used it much because he did use it when he had to work away from home and he was working crazy hours. Now he's moved back home. There's so much demand for welding around here. It's a great field to get into. And especially because you could live in an area like this where the cost of living is pretty low, be a welder, a job that's respected, liked. You know, everyone I know that does it loves it. They love being a welder and still got a lot of free time. So, yeah, it is good money, but dangerous. So we're going to talk a little about the shutdown. We'll also take calls after the first hour or anything like that. Last night's show was a little weird. I enjoyed it a lot. I love calls, especially with people that are disagreeing with me. That's what I'd like to do, debates and call-ins. I would do that every night. But it was weird because I didn't think anyone was going to call in until we're like an hour into the show. And then every call I got after the first call was just sort of like different topics, which is fine, but it's hard to put together shit. Like if you're talking about shutdown tonight, you know, and someone's like, I want to talk about tariffs. It's like, okay. And the next person's like, I want to talk about January 6th. You know, yeah, man, I think, you know, Mike Rowe talks about the need for blue collar work a lot. It's really incredible. If I had it to do over again, I would have went to Votech in high school. Like Votech was always kind of looked down. I don't want to say looked down upon, but I was in my little rural school that I went to. I think I graduated with 78 people in my class in 2002. I think is what we graduated. I was near the top of our class for like SAT scores. I think I had a 1260, which was really good for this area, but not very good for, you know, nationally. Um, the sort of, I was friends with everyone. Like I had friends that were, I was in jazz band, I was in concert band, I was in show choir one year, for God's sakes. I was captain of the chess club, I was on the football team, I was the announcer for basketball and baseball games. So I had a lot of friends. I was really good friends with all the stoners. So I had an eclectic group of friends, and some of my friends that were higher academic achievers sort of looked down on Votech, but the joke's on them. For those that don't know, vocational tech was like where you would go to regular school half the day, and then you would get in a bus and you would go and you would take like one class for the rest of the day that might be like carpentry or welding, or they had like beauty tech, so like working at a beauty salon, um, protective services for people that wanted to get into being a security guard or a police officer. So those, I feel like in this area, those kids that went to Votech with me in high school are all doing remarkably well. Like they're working jobs that are maybe paying 30, 35 bucks an hour. They have no debt, unlike me who went to grad school and has tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. That's not using my degree for anything. So I really think, and I think that you're going to see more of a demand. There was this sort of idea that tech and AI was going to make blue collar work irrelevant. I think it's almost the opposite. Hands-on work is still going to be cheaper and better done. Like welding, yeah, if you have a factory, you could build a machine that does the fitting and the welding that you would need for a particular part right there. But there will always be a need for welders that could do a varying set of things, not just welding one piece over and over again. And so you're going to need those people. Even in the medical field, like doctors kind of can be replaced in some degree. Because a doctor, like, you could do virtual doctors, which you see. You could also do, like, in a way, a doctor's sort of just like a computer. You're punching in your symptoms and it's giving you an answer and then a treatment. But nurses will always be needed. You're always going to need a human touch. So it's interesting, like, even from back in the day, the jobs that we were told, like, yo, you got to go to college, these sort of jobs will be irrelevant. And they're more relevant than ever. There's a really good South Park about it where, right, like all the day laborers and like people that know how to do carpentry and handyman stuff become wealthy because no one could do it anymore. Novotic, thanks for the $10. I saw a Jasmine Crockett post on X about the shutdown, and someone commented, "You gonna twerk after the shutdown ends as a protest?" It's good stuff. Now my buddy Sparky ruins it here. He comes on Less Than 3 Entertainment. He's trying to pretend he's not Aircraft Sparky, but that's Aircraft Sparky. Oh, okay. You're talking about January 6th being a dead topic. I thought you were talking about the shutdown. The shutdown seems to be somewhat of a dead topic because it looks like Chuck Schumer caved. Now, I didn't look. Is Chuck Schumer caving, but there's still going to be enough Democrat no votes? Or are they making sure that there's just enough Democrat no votes to keep the shutdown occurring? That I don't know. Does anyone know whether that's the case or not? Yeah, man, I'm the worst blue collar guy. I'm the worst. I'm the worst handyman. I'm the worst carpenter. I'm the worst mechanic. All that stuff. I'm just the worst at. I'm terrible. But those are the people I respect the most. So I'm kind of like, I was looked at as like a nerd to all my friends growing up. But then when I went off to debate, they thought I was like this crazy redneck, which I kind of am. But around here, the real rednecks that are like cool that I respect, they think I'm a nerd. So it's sort of an interesting. I think I've told this story on here before, but like my wife's family, like her dad's a cop, her stepdad's a former diesel mechanic, former pig farmer, and now he drives oversized loads drives a tractor trailer, houses that are oversized. And her mom's always worked in that field as like a dispatcher or whatever. And I remember the like second or third time we went over to their house, they were redoing their kitchen and their dining room. And they were putting up paneling that went up halfway across the wall and then molding that you would put across it. And so they had like a nail gun and they're putting it up. And her stepdad hands me the nail gun. He's like, here, you run this. We'll hold it up. We'll measure it. Then you just hit the nail gun where we tell you. I'm like, okay. I'm like 26 years old. I'm like, sure, no problem. And they don't know me very well. So I run the nail gun for like 5 minutes, and then her stepdad's like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And he takes it away from me, and he gives it to to my wife's 14-year-old sister, and is like, "Here, you run the nail gun," and hands me the nails. He's like, "Here, you could hold the." So it took about 5 minutes, and I was reduced to holding nails while the 14-year-old girl got to run the nail gun. So that gives you an idea of my handyman capabilities. But still, those are the people I love. That's right, nail holder's an important job. Damn straight. There needs to be more good nail holders in this way. Hey, man, if I was getting paid by the State Department or, the government to hold nails, they're paying what, like $20 per nail. So I imagine the nail holders are making bank. Become a government nail holder and then collect a like $200,000 pension if you do it for 4 years. Doesn't sound like a bad job, Prime K's and Admiral Gibbs are going to be on Timcast. Good for them. That's actually really cool. I did not hear that, but I tip my cap to both of them. I always like seeing people that I think, even if I don't agree with them, that are putting work in and putting time in this space to get an opportunity. So I think that's really cool. I'll have to reach out to them and wish them luck. I assume they'll be debating against each other is sort of the idea. But yeah, very cool. I'll have to reach out to Tim again and see if I could get on the show at some point. But I think that's great news. All right, so here's the deal. We'll talk about lockdowns for a bit here. And then we will open up the lines if people want to call in, preferably to argue about something. I'm a stream of conscious, so we can talk about anything. So if people want to bounce topics, fine by me. I don't care. But I was surprised last night. There were a couple callers. I had to get out I told my wife I'd be done at 10:30. By the way, I got yelled at because I was late. My wife said I was a dirty liar because I said my stream was only going to be an hour and a half and it was 3.5 hours. So my wife's really cool. I joke about that stuff, but honest to goodness, I can only do this because she's so awesome. And she's downstairs with the kid. And, last night she's cleaning up the living room because I don't know how many of you have ever had toddlers, but we got the couch out yesterday. We took it outside, and then we have a hardwood floor, so the living room's basically empty because we removed all of the furniture, and then they were bringing the new furniture in today. Well, having a toddler, when you're moving that couch, it's like a treasure chest. There's toys falling out of it, crumbs falling out of it, socks and stuff, his socks, like little plastic forks and stuff that he must have shoved into the cushions and it got under the liner. And so this is actually a decent amount of work to scrub the floors and clean all of that up. And I did none of it because I was up here streaming. So that's how cool my wife is. I joke when it's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble with the wife. But she's really cool. They're going to be debating Doge. Cool. Prime K's and Admiral Gibbs. Good for them, man. I think that one thing I could say about Prime and Gibbs is I think they've both been streaming a long while and they're dedicated in what they do. And those are two people that I think would deserve a shot to be accessed up to a bigger audience. So I think that that's amazing. I really do. Really good for them. Hopefully they have a good showing, both of them. I think that would be, and it would be good for people like me. I think if you can get people from these spaces to further branch out into bigger spaces, then it puts more eyeballs on everyone else in the space. So I'm all for it. I wish them the best. So let's start talking about. That's right. I do. The couch is out back. So I had to move the couch to the very back yard where our burn pit is. And so I'm going to burn the couch here. Probably tomorrow. That'll be my big project tomorrow, burning the couch. Yeah, I would love to go back on Timcast to debate. We'll chum in some lefty to debate tonight. Where's the Canada guy that wants to talk about burning down the White House? Let's bring him back on. Oh, one more thing before we get started. Check this out. I find this to be quite humorous. Let's see if this works out. So I still have a TikTok account. Oops. I have to log into this. Well, never mind. I'm not going to log into TikTok here to show you this, but I will show you on my channel, my YouTube channel. TikTok's so weird to me because I'll put a short video up on YouTube. Now, YouTube, I don't know how many people I have watching right now. I had like 200 people watching last night, a YouTube live stream, right? I'm usually doing pretty good at this point, usually over 100, 150 and around theirs, which is great. I mean, that's phenomenally lucky. I'm so impressed with that. But a lot of my short videos and regular videos, they don't get much attention. So, for example, I put a short up today. Yeah, I'll show you this, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So here's my shorts. Uh, 32 views, 124, 170, 149. This one that was garbage that Streamlab put up for me that I put no effort in got 573. But you can see, like, I'm lucky to break 200 on these shorts. I put them up every day and get almost no traction. Then the ones I do that are almost no work, like this Joy Reid, it's not even me talking. It gets 6,000. This one with Arnold got 1,000. But that's it, right? I get no traction on it. But like on TikTok, I'll put the same videos up on TikTok, they almost always get 900 views. And it'll be really quick. Like within 15 minutes, it'll be like 900 views. And then it won't get like one more view. That's it. And I think it has to do with TikTok's algorithm. Like it just, I don't know. It just stops recommending me, whatever. So another topic, heck, maybe we'll start talking about this topic, pandemic related topic here. Here's the short I put up yesterday. Let me get this set up for you. So here it is. And we're going to play the whole short. It's only like a minute. Well, would you look at that? It turns out the intelligence service under Merkel in Germany knew in early 2020 that their assessment was that coronavirus actually came from a Wuhan lab. Now, the truth is that many intelligence services and other government entities knew this was most likely the case early and often, and yet they saw an interest in not telling that to the American people. Why? And the people around the world, for that matter. One, because America is also implicated in this because they funded that Wuhan lab. And second, because the interest was in controlling people. If people knew that this was a bioweapon, they would have demanded answers and had an easier idea of potentially how to deal with the virus instead of perpetual lockdowns, which led to one of the largest transfers of wealth from the poor and working class to the wealthy around the world. It was all about control. It was all lies. Never forget what they did to you. As they said you were non-essential and forced you to lock down, they partied their time away. They lied to you the whole time, and they'll lie to you about more important things in the future. Well, would you look at that? It turns. Now, why did I play that for you? That got a community strike on TikTok. That video you just watched. That's a community strike on TikTok. And I'll tell you why. I'll what the message it gave me was. Let me open it up here. I never open TikTok on my computer. I just have it on my phone. Oh, quiet you. It says community guideline violation for integrity and authenticity. So I guess on the Chinese-owned TikTok, you can't even make a 1-minute short saying, hey, the Chancellor of Germany withheld evidence that this most likely came from a lab in Wuhan that was funded by the United States. They're like, nope, that's against our guidelines. You can't say that. It's true. That's what the article from Spiegel, German paper, says. But you can't say it. So I always have to remember, you still deal with, like, TikTok's always been shit as far as I'm concerned for me. It's ironic that my short videos always do better on TikTok than they do on YouTube. It is what it is. But they give me community strikes for stuff all the time. Like, all the time. So it's... No. Thank you. It's very interesting. So I'm on notice. I said Wuhan. That must be it. They probably just have an algorithm or something. I could be like, I wonder if you did a video that was like, people say that it came from a Wuhan lab, but that's garbage. That's anti-Chinese propaganda. I wonder if they would flag that. Be like, oh, you can't say Wuhan. I don't know. It'd be interesting. Maybe we'll test it out. But eventually my TikTok channel is going to get banned. But I don't do anything with it other than post the very videos you see on YouTube. Go there. But the YouTube shorts get no traction. I think that YouTube still stifles me in the algorithm. I think that the thing that's saving me on the live streams is people generally know when my schedule is. I'm streaming around 7 p.m. Eastern. But I don't know. I'll ask you all. Do you all get notifications from YouTube when I go live? Do you get notifications when I put up a regular video or a short video? My regular videos that Black Elk's editing, they don't do so bad. They're getting like 700 views, 1,000 views. Some get 2,000 views. But those shorts, they do nothing. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Sparky gets them. Live pops up. Okay. Well, there you go. People are getting live notifications at least. And to be honest, the live's what I like doing anyways. So there we go. So, all right. We'll hop in. I thought it's up to you guys. We could start talking about that story with COVID, or let's start with the other. It's not up to you. There's the Discord link if anyone wants to come in and argue with me or something at some point tonight. Just let me know. Any lefties out there? I saw that HN guy that was the first guy that called in yesterday. He was on my YouTube channel going like, Rob treats the people that support him but don't agree with them like crap. Aw. Poor buddy. Sorry I hurt your feels. Sorry about that. Shutdowns. All right. So, one, if anyone could tell me, let's go basically what's going on. Republicans are pushing through a continuing resolution. It basically keeps things the same as they are, spending at basically the same levels for everything. It would be up for renewal again in September. I mentioned that I'm not the biggest fan of this. I think that I would like to have seen things like USAID being pared down now. I'm willing to give some sort of benefit of the doubt that, okay, let's see what happens 6 months from now. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 480 times. You know, it's always that. Next time we'll get around to shrinking the size of government. Trust us next time. Oh, something important came up. Trust us next time. You know, so I'm tired of playing that game. But okay, let's see what happens here in September. So as it is, the Republicans passed this CR. It goes through the House. The Republicans are going to vote for it in the Senate. But you need to be able to override a filibuster. Jess Gerald, thank you so much. Always a good friend of the show. Member for 4 months says, give Rob money. See, there's an all caps that will allow money. Thanks so much, Jess Gerald. I really appreciate it. I will take your money, all of yours. You guys, it means a lot to me. It really does. So Schumer came out and was like, we're going to oppose this. Why? And it's just like, well, it funds Doge, and that's going to cut Medicare or Medicaid, and it'll cut benefits for people. Oh, wow. Jess Gerald, incredibly generous as always, gives another 50 subs. Thank you so much. I can't say enough, Jess Gerald. Always incredibly generous. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. Always incredibly generous. So, Jess Gerald's probably donated 500 subs in the past month. Like, no joke. That might be short selling it. So, I mean, it's unbelievable. And no, it's not like my wife or someone that's just going on there and doing that to encourage. Thank you so much, Jess Gerald. Really appreciate it. So the Democrats, I guess, are threatening to cut off their nose despite their face. Because the argument would be, well, Republicans are considering cutting back the size of the federal government. So we'll defund it all. We'll shut it down. To which I say, you couldn't ask for a more politically advantageous position from the Republican side. Oh, so we get to shut down the government and it's the Democrats' fault. Great. That's absolutely amazing. What would shutting down the government prove? Well, that the vast majority of this bloated government that we have isn't necessary for almost anyone's day-to-day life. It turns out your life could go just fine without those 80,000 addition IRS agents. Your life will be the same. Isn't that crazy? And thousands upon thousands upon thousands of other government workers. Your life would be, and then all of a sudden you might say, what? Wow, if it was shut off for like 2 months and my life didn't change, why are we spending trillions of dollars on all of this? What's up with that? So the Democrats never want a shutdown. Now, they'll take it if they could blame Trump. Remember when they forced the shutdown by threatening filibuster when Trump was in office because walls were racist? You know, the same walls that they now say they ran on building. Walls were racist when Trump wanted money for them in 2019. But then Kamala Harris wanted to build a wall because she's super serious about the border in 2024. But as we talked about, Jimmy Kimmel would go on television. He'd cry. The children won't get insurance. They won't get their milk. Oh, where's the heart of the Republicans? Where's Jimmy Kimmel today? Chuck Schumer said that millions of Americans would be harmed. Where are they at today? Where are they? Well, we can't fund rates at basically the same level because if we do, Republicans in the Trump administration will use that money for their agents that are working to get rid of government spending. Now, my understanding is if the government shuts down, there's even more purview for the executive to say what needs to stay open as essential, which would mean Trump would probably say, okay, well, the FBI under Kash Patel is still going to stay open. Doge is still going to stay open. Now, Crowbar, we'll talk about that. That's where we're going with this. So, but as far as I'm concerned, shut down the government. Fine by me. Great. There's no leverage for the Democrats. The thing they're pissed about is the Trump administration, like, we're going to shrink the size of government. And then they think their leverage is, okay, well, then we'll force a government shutdown. But that's playing right into the hands of the people that are like, sweet. Veteran affairs will stay open. It's all bullshit. Like when the shutdowns occur, the people that got laid off all get back pay when they get back to work. Things like WIC and, getting food to children, Veterans Affairs, all that stuff stays open. So what's the threat here? What do they even want? Well, the Republicans didn't negotiate with us for a CR that basically just says continue spending at these same levels as we had last time. What did you want the negotiate? Like, what do you expect? Like, what they want's like, well, we want an end to Doge. So their argument will be like, okay, here's our offer. Either you agree to rein Trump in and not allow Doge to cut back on government fraud and waste, or we'll shut down the government. Now, it's funny, and I understand why so many Democrats would be like, yeah, because from all of the talk we've had on Ukraine, it is clear they have no idea how negotiations work. Like none. You need to have leverage. The only leverage that Democrats could have is if huge portions of people would be really pissed off about a shutdown. I'm not so sure that's true for the reasons that I've already said. I think most people will be like, my life didn't really change. And not only would people have to be pissed, but they would have to blame Trump and the Republicans. And Trump and Republicans are like, we have a plan. It passed the House. All of the Republicans in the Senate won it. You're just filibustering. So the two arguments that I've seen, which are insane, this logic is brilliant. One, Republicans should just voluntarily give up something so that Democrats will vote for this. They should cave into Democrat. What sense does that make? The shutdown will hurt Democrats more than Republicans. But these people are saying, no, it would be Republicans' fault if they don't give up things to the Democrats. Now, think about this logic for 3 seconds. Do you think there is any chance at all, if the shoe was on the other foot and Kamala Harris had won and Democrats won the Senate and the House, and Democrats passed a spending bill in the House, and now it goes to the Senate, and they don't have enough to override the filibuster? Do you think for 1 second that anyone making this argument, that the aforementioned argument, would say, well, if there's a shutdown, then it's the Democrats' fault? Yep. All the Democrats voting to stop the shutdown, all the Republicans voting for it, it's Democrats' fault. How many of you think that even one person making that argument about Republicans would say the inverse about the Democrats? There is not one person in the world that is making that argument today about Republicans that if the exact inverse situation occurred would say, yep, it's Democrats' fault that there's a shutdown. They might say, well, Democrats are partially to blame. But they would say the overwhelming majority of the blame goes on the party that no one's voting. The other argument's even more asinine as to why this would be Republicans' fault. It would be Republicans' fault, get this, because they could remove the filibuster. So they could vote to change the rules and then pass the bill. As if they did that, the same Democrats that are making that argument wouldn't howl, oh my gosh, they're destroying the system. Now, we know that Democrats ran on packing the courts if they won. They ran on ending the filibuster, both of which would be unmitigated disasters. But now some of them have the gall to be like, well, because every Democrat's going to vote against and for a filibuster of this spending bill, of this CR, that it's Republicans' fault for not ending the filibuster, which if they did, we would yell and scream was the worst thing in the world. And what this is it is nakedly them telling you, this is all about politics for us, baby. It's all politics. We don't actually give a shit. When we say millions of Americans will suffer if the government shuts down, we don't give a shit about those Americans. All we care about is how we can spin this politically. That's it. That's what's going on. So the only leverage then Democrats have is, well, they got to spin it. They need Rachel Maddow to be spin, baby. Where's Jen Psaki? Joy Reid and Chuck Todd. Oh, wait, they got fired. My bad. Someone call up George Stephanopoulos. Jake Tapper. We need to convince the American people that the Republicans that passed a bill out of the House that would have enough to pass it in the Senate, except that the Democrats will filibuster it, it's their fault. And yes, 80% of Democrats will buy that shit because they don't give a shit. Trump bad, Orange Man bad, he's evil, Republicans are all evil. Now there's Chuck Schumer. So this is the question I have for the audience because I didn't read enough on this. It just broke right before I was coming upstairs to mess with my microphone. Apparently Chuck Schumer, who came out and was like, it's a no for me, is now saying, well, okay, I will vote for it. My question is, does this mean the Democrats have caved, or does this mean that some select Democrats, for strategic reasons, will say, okay, we'll vote for it, but not enough to override the filibuster? In other words, symbolically, a few Democrats will say they'll vote for it because they have elections coming up that they can't be held responsible for a shutdown, but the Democrats are still going to shut it down. ML, your response, I don't know what that means, won't get the votes. You mean that there won't be enough votes for a shutdown, or there won't be enough votes for the bill? Yeah, I saw Fetterman's voting for it, yeah. Let me go to my X channel and see what I can find here. There won't be enough for shutdown. That's what I thought. Thomas Massie puts out 12 minutes from now. Here, let's We'll just share this. Massie says, and I was right. It was all performative. Of course, Schumer was always going to go for the continuation of the Biden-Schumer-Johnson 2024 spending agenda for the first 9 months of the Trump presidency.
Republican rejection leads us to a decision. And it's not really a decision. It's a Hobson's choice. Either proceed with the bill before us or risk Donald Trump throwing America into the chaos of a shutdown. This, in my view, is no choice at all. While the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. For sure, the Republican bill is a terrible option. It is not a clean CR. It is deeply partisan. It doesn't address far too many of this country's needs. But I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option. And before I explain why, let me be clear about one thing. No one on my side of the aisle wants a government shutdown. Members who support this CR do not want a government shutdown. Members who oppose this CR do not want a government shutdown.
Yeah, Mr. Performative. All bullshit. All this wailing and gnashing of teeth. And what happens? Well, okay, we're not going to do anything about it. It's all just political grandstanding. That's all it is. That's it. Remember, the Democrats threatening the filibuster in a very similar position back when Republicans were running things and Trump was there in the first term, threatened a filibuster that led to the largest government shutdown because they refused to give money for the wall. That was it. That was the big hangup. These are the same people that are freaking out. What do you mean we're not spending hundreds of millions on transgender mice anymore? That's dangerous. We can't stop that. But they wanted to pretend one time to be fiscally conservative. And it had to do with, stopping people from crossing the border. By the way, on the border, worth pointing this out, just so you can see how these people will lie about anything. Remember when we were told that, yes, you absolutely have to pass the Langford bill? You have to. We need to let at least 4,000 people a day in. We have to. That's what we were told. And actually, the Democrats, even though they didn't do anything about the border in 2021 or 2022 or 2023, in 2024, in the election year, they were very concerned about the border. And everyone I debated on the left said, actually, the Democrats are more concerned about doing something at the border than Trump. Remember that? Well, we have the first month of numbers in. This graph is showing migrants traveling in the Darien Gap. Under Trump, 408. Biden's peak per month, 80,000. Look where the numbers were with Trump when he was in office. Then you can see when Biden comes into office. Now we're back to when Trump's in office. Huh. Illegal border crossings. February 2024, 140,641. February 2025, Trump's first month, 8,347. That is a 94% decline. And that number for Biden in February 2024, that's when they said Biden was getting better. Now, what's Democrats' answer to this going to be? What's their argument going to be? Did I make Pisco cry again? I'm sorry. What's their response list going to be? I can tell you, I know. I've already heard mutterings. Dead argument, you're a Nazi. Yeah. Yeah, you're a Nazi, absolutely right. One of the big problems with the Langford bill was it continued to fund NGOs that were largely responsible for having these people coming across the border in the first place. So cutting USAID actually would go a long way. There was one other thing I was looking for. Yeah, there. No, the argument's going to be, yeah, but actually it wasn't a problem anyways. That's the argument. It's the same tired old argument. It's not happening. And then, well, yeah, it's a good thing that it's happening. No, there's not a border crisis. There aren't a bunch of, it's not that things are way worse under Biden. There's a bunch of other reasons. It's not that Trump would be any better. Biden and Kamala would be better for the border than Trump. And then once that's definitively proved, they're like, yeah, but it was actually a good thing that we had all these people coming across the border. That's their argument. That's the argument. I argued with Republicans that said the Langford bill's good. Why aren't you supporting this, Rob? Right. Brimstone is right. I always say Brimstone Todd, but it's Brimstone. To fund Social Security, we need immigrants. That'll be the argument. Right. It was good that this many people were coming. That was their argument in 2021. That was their argument in 2022. That was their argument in 2023. And then in 2024, they looked at the polling and said, oh, shit, this is a huge losing argument for us. And so then Joe Biden was like, we're taking the border very seriously. And the Democrats were like, we're taking the border very seriously. And therefore, all the people I was debating were like, we're taking the border very seriously. And all of a sudden, they pretended to give a shit. Oh, our bill, the Langford bill, bipartisan, yep, that'll do it. And then as soon as the election's over, they're like, yeah, we won all those people again. It was a good thing when all those people were coming that we told you we were concerned about stopping, and so you had to pass our bill that let 4,000 a day in. But trust us, it was all about stopping it. I don't know how many times I feel like I'm a broken record repeating myself. These people want to erode national identity. They do not want a border. They want tantamount to open borders. They want globalism. That's what they want. How else do you explain in 1 month a 94% drop other than they wanted this? They wanted it. Or is the argument they're just that incompetent? They bragged about the first day in office, executive order. We rescinded Trump's executive order. Ha ha ha. Then we saw record numbers of people month after month after month. They didn't care. You were racist for talking about it. Now we're left with one of two decisions. Either one, they're so fucking stupid that it took Trump 1 month to decrease the numbers by 94%. Or the reason the numbers were high was because they were happy the numbers were high. That's why. Now, every one of you know the truth. Even if you're watching right now and you're a Democrat, you know the truth, which is the Democrats liked those high numbers. You know it, I know it, and all the people I were debating know it. But they'll lie right to your face, just like they knew that Joe Biden was cognitively declined. We all knew it. We all saw the evidence. They saw it too, and yet they pretend, oh, we didn't see it. All that mattered to them was power, was winning. Tough shit, we win. Eat it. We'll do what we want. That's it. Remember Pisco and all them? What was it? Anyone want to tell me? Like, from the first week Trump was in office, what was the big attack against Trump? I'll give you a clue. It had to do something with the economy. What was everyone pointing to and saying, see how bad the economy is? See? I've not banged my toe in the new couch yet. What was the metric that everyone was pointing at, all the Democrats? I bring up my friend Pisco all the time on X. Every day he was posting this. What was it? It was egg prices. The price of eggs. Every day, that was it. Oh, where are all the Republicans? They don't care about the price of eggs. Trump's war on breakfast. First off, almost none of these people said shit all about inflation when it was sky high for 4 years under Biden. They didn't give a shit. In fact, here's the truth. You want to know why? Like, it's the same thing with the cognitive decline. Let me let you in on a little secret. Did you notice these same people, once it became evident that they could no longer lie about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, right? Right out of the gate, after that debate, it was like, uh-oh, cat's out of the bag. So what did they do? Once Kamala was installed, not voted for, but installed, what did they start to do? Does anyone remember? A real Saul Alinsky move, if that gives you a little clue. It was, there's nothing wrong with cognitive decline, no cognitive decline, no cognitive decline, no cognitive, and then it was in everyone's face, and then we brought in Kamala, and then what did they say? Like, it took one day. Now, it wasn't the doubling down. Nope. Again, the clue is Saul Alinsky. What would he tell them to do? You accuse others of what you're doing. You take your weakness and make it your strength. That's right, Imaginarium. Shamelessly, the immediate transition to, well, Donald Trump has cognitive decline. He's too old. That's the real issue. Wait a minute, you people that covered for Biden's cognitive decline for 4 years and were like, it's not a big deal. It literally took them one day once Biden was out to be like, oh, Trump's too old. Trump has cognitive decline. What that was about was they were pissed that you noticed. And not me and you. They mean like the American people. How dare you? Don't you know that the moral, righteous thing to do is just to perpetually vote for the people they say and keep your fucking mouth shut and be happy and praise them? Everything you have good in your life is because of them and the people they tell you to vote for. And how dare you complain, you plebe? How dare you? Shut your mouth. And so when their lies were uncovered, and it was universal from these people, you know how I know they knew? Because I knew, and you knew, and the evidence was public of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. So they were furious. Oh, Jesus, these fucking people. They're so mad about the cognitive decline. Who gives a fuck? Don't they know that Biden's awesome? Don't they know that how much we've given everyone? They're complaining about shit? Fine, we'll get rid of him. Install another puppet, Kamala. Oh, now your guy's cognitive decline. What about that cognitive decline? Look, cognitive decline. They're rubbing it in your face like, oh yeah, I guess it's a big issue, cognitive decline, you fuckers. Same with egg prices. They're pissed that one of the big reasons they lost was because they downplayed inflation. In fact, how many times did you hear me saying, going back to 2021, 2022, when I was like, I don't understand the political strategy of the Biden administration and all their sycophants when it comes to the economy. They kept saying, it's the greatest economy ever. This economy is fantastic. How many times did you hear me say in this channel? It was like, imagine being a Biden voter and you're struggling mightily with all of inflation and the price of everything going up. And you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford to make ends meet? And then you turn on your favorite left-wing propagandist and they're like, greatest economy ever. I don't know why people are complaining. What do you think chances are that someone's going to help you then? When the people you voted for are telling you it must be your fault because everyone's doing great in the economy. Inflation, what are you talking about? It's the greatest economy. I was like, it doesn't make sense. If I was them, I would be out there and go, of course, inflation's really bad and people are struggling mightily economically. But a lot of it had to do with Trump's mishandling of COVID. Biden's been working tirelessly to dig us out of this hole. No, I think that's bullshit, but at least that's a politically savvy message as opposed to just being like, what problem? There's no problem. Just trying to gaslight people that the economy's great. That was their strategy. That was their strategy with the border. There's no border crisis. What are you talking about? Things are going great. You're racist if you disagree. It wasn't just Republicans that disagreed. There were plenty of Democrats. There were plenty of minorities that were like, we have a problem with inflation. We have a problem with the open border. So instead of having any sort of self-reflection and being like, shit, maybe we should have been more open about, yeah, you're right, the economy's rough. You're right. What do? Instantly, they're like, the very first week, they're like, egg prices are high. It's Trump's fault. Remember when the first inflation numbers came out, month-to-month inflation? And the January numbers came out, and they were like, look at this, high inflation under Trump. And then you were like, yeah, actually, the cutoff for that's like January 8th. So that means those inflation numbers are still before Trump's in office. Eggs are high because Biden administration killed millions of chickens. Now, maybe let's steel man the position. And you're like, yeah, but he had to. Okay, but then that's still clearly not Trump's fault. They know that. People like Pisco know that. People that you see on CNN and all, they all know that are yelling about egg prices. They know that Trump's policies at this point have nothing to do with that. Nothing. And they don't give a shit. They don't give a fuck about egg prices. They're mad that you noticed, and not just you, people that voted for Biden in 2020, people that maybe voted for Hillary in 2026. They were like, you know what? We're going to vote for Trump this time. And one of the reasons was the economy. They're mad that you noticed that. They're mad that you didn't just get gaslit into saying, no, the economy's great. They're pissed off. So instead of being like, okay, we need to have some self-reflection, they're like, well, fine. If that's it, then we're just going to say, oh, day one of Trump. Look at the prices of eggs. See, they're high. It's all Trump's fault. See, that's how it works, right? That's how it works. They might as well be saying, we don't give a fuck about you. We don't care. We're mad that you didn't buy our bullshit about the economy. The problem is, when you do this shit and you're disingenuous, a lot of times you're made to look like a fool. Okay, so egg prices, that's the big issue? Egg prices? Egg prices fell off the cliff. They're below $5. January 2021, when Trump came into office under Biden, $6.55. Today, $4.89. That's a decline under Trump of 25.34%. So that means Trump's doing awesome for the economy, right? Because egg prices were so important. It was the war on breakfast. Right? The war on breakfast. Now, let's talk about these statistics for a bit. This isn't necessarily what every consumer is paying. This is the producers. So producers are charging less for it to like wholesalers. This is what wholesalers are paying. But it'll take time for that to show to the consumers. And there's a good chance that policies that Trump's implementing may drive up inflation. But the problem is when you cry wolf, there is no way that on January 25th, when they started yelling about egg prices, the Democrats, that anything that Trump had done was responsible for raising the price of eggs. They knew that. They didn't give a shit. So now they have to explain, well, wait a minute, just because there's this dip. Actually, Rob, so here's the thing. One, that's not just the price that consumers are paying, that's the price of producers. And anyways, it makes sense. It's nothing Trump did that lowered the price. Everybody knew that if you cull a bunch of chickens, what happens is it'll take a little while to build back up those chickens, but once you start breeding more chickens, then the prices of eggs will start to fall naturally. So that's not on Trump. Yeah, no shit. Just like the increase in price wasn't on Trump. But once you say, nope, egg prices, that's on Trump. Okay, now that we have a 25% decline, now your argument is, yeah, but that's not on Trump. Egg prices now, is that what they're doing? Nope, they've moved on. They don't give a shit about it. This is why it's irrelevant to argue with these Democrats about 95% of the shit. It doesn't matter. They'll scream about something like it's the most important thing in the world, and then as soon as it's disproven, they're just on to the next thing. You won't hear them talking about egg prices. They're done with it. Now it's the stock market. If the stock market goes up next week and it ends up at numbers higher than it was under the Biden administration, do you think they'll say, shit, we were wrong? Wow, egg prices falling, core inflation numbers lower than expected, and the stock market rising? Wow, Trump's amazing for the economy. Our bad, we were wrong. Of course not. And in some ways, they'd be right not to, if we're talking legitimately. Because it's going to take some time for Trump's policies to have some of the effects that they're talking about. Now, there are effects that a president coming in, even right before he's sworn in, and his first days in office can have. And that has to do with business confidence, consumer confidence, predictability, volatility. So, for example, there could be businesses that are afraid of Trump's tariffs, and so that changes their investment strategies. That's certainly a possibility. And so I think that you can say that a lot of the fluctuations in the stock market and them dipping is because of Trump's suggested tariffs. I think that's completely reasonable. Absolutely. But the egg prices argument was always bullshit. Always. Again, as I talked about last night, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of these tariffs. I don't mind using them as a political bargaining chip, and I do think that there are potential good that could come with tariffs if they work and bring manufacturing back to the United States. I think there are other things you could do other than just tariffs to do that, like cutting regulations, cutting taxes. But the problem is, why would you believe anything these people say when they're going to lie to you about something so blatant as egg prices? Trueflation's index on it, one of the core metrics that they use to look at inflation, or sites that does it. That red arrow was the day Trump was sworn in. So you can see it was about this is year to year. So it was about 2.83, we'll say. Now you can see where we're at now, about 1.4. There's going to be trade-offs. Wall Street is pumped up because of so much government money that's going to it. In an ideal world, you don't want to see Wall Street collapse. One, because I don't give a shit. Wealthy people deserve money too. But second, it's not just wealthy people that lose if the stock market declines. How many of you are just working class people that have a 401k that's invested in stocks? I do. I've never personally picked or chosen a stock in my life other than I remember doing like the penny stock game in like 5th grade. I've never invested in a stock. But I put 5% of every of my check into a 401k that then goes to some, I don't know, JP Morgan or something that invests in select stocks. So if the stock market goes down, my 401k will decrease to some degree. Now, what we're talking about is like a 5% dip. And the truth is, so far, that's what we're at so far. The truth is, there were times during the Biden administration where the stock market went down 5%. I predict that the stock market will go lower. I don't think we're going to see a huge collapse, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down another 5 to 10%. Maybe worse than that, because it's overinflated. Our GDP is overinflated. When you're spending trillions of dollars that you're pumping into this shadow economy that's just government economy, it makes it look like, oh, there's more value here than there actually is. Wall Street keeps hitting record highs. Wall Street was hitting record highs under Biden. How was Main Street looking? Yeah, I've heard this, DSK, that he's looking for a 20% dip and then a lower of interest rates. We'll see if that's what happens. Yeah, I'm definitely a bad passive investor. Main Street didn't do well under the Biden administration. Wall Street was doing fantastic. Under COVID, Main Street didn't do so hot. The wealthy did fantastic. That's the truth. So, yes, there will be short-term pain when you turn off the government spigot. For example, let's say Trump tomorrow talks to the Fed, and the Fed decides we're going to increase the M2 money supply and put into circulation another $5 trillion. And the government starts lending it out, and this money gets into circulation. What if half of that money gets invested in the stock market? Is the stock market going up or down? I'm no financial genius, and I know the answer to that. What do you all think? If we print $5 trillion and then put that money into circulation and half of that money gets invested into the stock market, is the stock market going up or down in the short term? Anyone? Very classy bartender. I appreciate your shitty attempt at an April Fool's joke, but you can call in today if you like. Yeah, it's going to go way up. But all of us would know why that's a really bad idea, right? Stock market would be going through the roof. People would be like, woo, whoopee. But the value of the dollar would decrease. So the average person, the blue-collar worker, the person making the medium income of the United States, they're not going to have as big of a portion of their money in the stock market as the very wealthy. So for the very wealthy, it's going to disproportionately be an incredible boon to them. But for the average person, like let's say a person in the top 10% of wealth has 30% of their money invested in stocks. But a person in the around 50, right in the median, they only have 2% of their wealth invested in stocks. If you double the money supply and put all that money into stocks, that's going to hugely benefit the person that has a bigger piece of the pie into stocks. You that barely has that, what just happened was the value of your money was basically cut in half. But yeah, your stocks went up a little that you have almost no invested in. So you're paying double for groceries, but your 401k just went up $1,000. Great. Right. Now, long term, it might harm the stock market by overinflating, which would then cause a collapse. But in the short term, that's what would happen. That's what's going to happen if we cut off the government spending. The massive spending, which will roll back GDP, which will bring GDP to more of what matters, which is real value, and will bring stocks back closer to real value and not the inflated value. So short term, there will be pain. Hopefully not that big, but there'll be pain in this places like the stock market. But you may start to see things like inflation come down. That's the other thing that I want to say briefly about. Sorry, checking something here. Briefly about the Democrat shutdown business. Republicans are terrible at messaging. Now, part of that's because half of the Republicans are absolute garbage that are no different than the Democrats. It's a uniparty. So they have no interest in being good at this sort of messaging. But notice how it's all but taken for granted. When we talk about inflation, well, Republicans vote for that stuff too. And they're right. They are right. That's true. Let's give Trump his roses. He embraced lockdown-esque policies in 2020. He signed off on those massive spending bills. Now, the truth is the Democrats wanted to spend more, but Republicans signed off on it. And even before COVID, Trump was spending a lot. I'm an equal abuser. I'll criticize both sides. The Democrats are far worse. We have the Democrats, the party of spend, 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 and the Republicans, the party of spend, 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 spend. One or two less spends, but still spend like crazy. But notice anytime you talk about not spending as much, the Democrats are like, oh, well, then you want to cut cancer research. Oh, then you want to cut benefits to single mothers. Oh, you want to cut this. You want to cut that. They can't have it both ways. Right now, the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that waste and fraud is not found within the federal government. Tooth and nail. Mikey for $5, thanks so much, says, appreciate what you do. I hope you get the audience you deserve soon. That could be a compliment or an insult. Like maybe the audience I deserve is like 2 people. No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Means a lot. Thank you, man. Republicans now need to shape the narrative, which is accurate. It's not just messaging. It's absolutely accurate. Democrats want the spending. They want they don't give a shit. They see this massive budget and they say, we don't care. They don't care at all. I'm looking for something here real quick. Real quick, here's CNBC, Rick Santelli, talking about some of the inflation numbers that came out this week. I couldn't find my headset there for a minute.
On a headline, expecting up 0.3, up 0, goose egg, unched. Boy, that is progress. We haven't had a number that low. Well, we equaled it in July of last year when we had another 0. To find a lower number, you're back to October of 23 at minus 0.4. Strip out the all-important food and energy, down 1/10. Down 1/10. That's 0.4 lower than expectations. Down 1/10 also equals July of last year. Find a lower number, you're going back to COVID times, April of 2020. On a headline, expected.
Pretty good. Looking pretty good for inflation numbers. Now, we'll see what happens. It's early. I'm looking for something else here. Where was this? Maybe I didn't save this. Just the interest on the federal debt in February was almost $86 billion. That was over 63% of all personal income tax collected last month. Almost 2/3 of the government's largest revenues is consumed by interest alone. Now we're hearing how is the spending so high already 1 month in under Trump? Look, the spending is going to be higher than I wanted. That's why I actually favored Massie voting against this CR. But it's because the Biden administration on their way out the door decided to spend an extra $300 billion. And then when Republicans try to cut back the spending, Democrat judges are like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then Democrats are like, look how much Trump's spending. That's how they try to craft this narrative. The Republicans need to hammer home. We can't afford it. The people that will pay, it is getting ridiculous. The share of the revenue that this country brings in that's going to pay off our debt. 2/3 last month of taxes collected went to paying interest on debt. Just the interest, not even the principal. Who's going to pay that back? It's not going to be the septuagenarians and octogenarians in Congress. And hell, it probably won't even be me at 40 years old. It'll be my son Hank and his children. Can you think of anything more selfish than these generations frivolously spending us into oblivion, knowing that they won't pay it back, it'll be their children and their children's children? Good question, Pleasers. Where's it? Pleasers, by the way, I always forget to mention this when I see you. Pleasers, an old chum of mine from back in the days of this website Above Top Secret, where we used to wreck lefties on there all the time. But yeah, you're right. He says, where's Joe Biden been? Shouldn't he be doing interviews and planning his library? He's sundowning. Hopefully he's finally meeting his granddaughter that he refused to acknowledge. There's still some, I think he's pretty much got his full cabinet. There's still a few positions that it's looking to fill out. But yeah, there's been almost no time. And again, it's an easy game to play. Look, $10 billion to fight cancer. $9.5 billion of that's just going to go to administrative cost for DC insiders that are, and you're like, wow, that's at the taxpayer's dime. That's $10 billion. Let's stop that. Oh, so you don't care about kids with cancer? You don't care? That's terrible. You need to go at things with a scalpel, not a chainsaw. First off, no one in Washington's been going after shit. That's Republican and Democrat. Thank you, Mike Johnson. Thank you, Kevin McCarthy, for continuing to go along with the Democrat budgets year after year. So at least the Trump team's at least paying lip service to doing something with Doge. So I don't want to hear the people that are like, well, but Trump's not the right man. Elon's not the right man. Okay, then who is it? You have some pick that you would like? I agree. I wish it was Ron and Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. But it had to be Trump and Elon because no one else with the potential to win and get power was ever going to do it. And as much as I might like Thomas Massie or Rand Paul or Ron Paul, they weren't going to win the presidency. I would have crawled over glass to vote for them, but they weren't going to win. 2/3 of the money from last month that we collected in taxes went to paying interest on the debt. Jack of Trades says, we don't have time to futz around to get this perfect. We're in an existential crisis. Exactly. The people that are saying you need to use a scalpel, not a chainsaw, are people that don't want you to use a scalpel either. That's the truth. That's just their excuse. If you used a scalpel, then they would claim that that scalpel was too big. And you needed to use a micro laser or some bullshit. There was someone that wanted to call in last week, fan of the show, wanted to call in and talk about, they had a problem with Doge. And I was like, yeah, call in next week. They never reached back out to me. But their argument against Doge was, well, I happen to know a lot about weather and meteorology. And there is a handful of people that were let go that I'm aware of under Doge that were meteorologists with the National Weather Service. That's very important. And what do you say to that? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't give a shit. Sorry. Do I think that there's room for criticism to be like, hey, maybe we should have left this bit of funding in. Maybe we should have not fired that person. Sure. And Elon and Trump have both admitted we'll make adjustments as necessary. If we make a mistake, we'll rehire people, etc. But in general, things are so bad that you can't just sit there and be like, oh, we're just going to putz around and, we'll take a look at things. We'll put out a report. Again, the OMB or whatever, the Government Accountability Office, they've said for years, hundreds of millions of dollars in Social Security fraudulent every year. No one does shit. There's going, look how bad the problem is. Oh, well, we can't go at it with the chainsaw. Someday someone will come along with a scalpel, but not today. Let's keep spending. Yeah, I know, Bandit, it's still functioning, but this person thought that it was going to be hampered. You'll see polls today that are saying that Trump is now underwater. Then he went from like 1 percentage point up to now he's 0.7 underwater. So like 49.3% view him as favorable. That's what the Real Clear Politics average will say. That's because, as Rasmussen was predicting, there was going to be a huge poll that came out by an anti-Trump pollster that was going to be incredibly negative today, that it was going to drop today. That way the weekend news programs could all talk about how Trump's favorability is falling. Let's take a look at this. There's Quinnipiac that has Trump negative 11. Quinnipiac negative 11. Ipsos negative 8. CNN negative 7. By the way, the 3 best pollsters on this list, I believe, in the 2020 election were Atlas Intel, that has Trump right at 50-50. Rasmussen, I think, was third, that has Trump +5. And the best one, I believe, I think Atlas was number 1. Trafalgar was number 2, that has Trump up 5. Now, the real lesson here is I just don't give a shit about the polls anymore. Did you see 538 collapsed? They were the gold standard for polling. They're out of business. Nate Silver, who left 538 to do his own thing, he's touting Trump these numbers, these Real Clear Politics averages. Remember, I don't know if you remember this, Nate Silver bet someone publicly online, like $100,000, that there was no way Trump was winning Florida by like 7. Just Gerald for $10. Thank you so much again, man. You've already given so much. Says, did Trump get no tax on overtime implemented? I don't believe so. I don't know that someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was in his CR. And I don't know that it's passed both the House and the Senate yet. It certainly hasn't passed the Senate yet. Whether it passed in the House, I'm not certain yet. For those wondering who was the best pollsters in, I saw this list earlier today. Let's see if I can find it. In the last election, I just don't care anymore. I don't trust. Now, come on. I saw this. Where are we at here? No. Was it Rasmussen or? Rich Bears, then I saw put this out. Must have been Rasmussen. 1 second. I might not be able to find that. Whatever. Not important. Just Gerald for another $10 says, "What's the holdup? No tax means more Rob Nor membership." Yeah, dude. Of all the things that have been suggested, the policy that would put the most money in my pocket would be no tax on overtime, because I work on average 40 hours of overtime a week, and I get taxed at a higher rate for my overtime than I do for regular rate. So it's ridiculous, like the amount of money I lose in taxes because of working overtime. But I digress. All right, here's the deal. It's 8:15. We could stay until 9 tonight. I could take calls if people want. We'll put that in the comment section. Preferably people that disagree with me on something, but we'll take whatever. Tomorrow, the idea of tomorrow's show is to be a call-in show. Now, there you go. Brimstone gets it. Being a trucker, of course, you're working a ton of overtime. Tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming at 9 a.m. And we'll probably just do a call-in show there, though I'll talk about whatever. We'll talk about any topic that people want. But there were a lot of people last night that wanted to talk to me about issues that we didn't have necessarily enough time to get into. Of course, I always like talking to people that disagree the most, but what can you do, you know? Sorry, I'm just reading something here real quick. Universal suffrage. You want to have the 19th Amendment debate again? We could do it. I believe that there should be slight barriers to voting, but the barriers that I'm concerned with is a certain age. I'm fine with 18, and that you have to show up in person on election day unless you have some sort of disability or military service. That's the barrier that I would put. It shows at least a minimal amount of effort. I'm open to hearing other discussions. You have to be a landowner, you have to be a parent. But in general, I'm probably going to default to I'm okay with near universal suffrage as long as people meet that barrier. More Canadians that want to call in and fight. Emily A., didn't you say you wanted to call in and talk about something? I said call in tomorrow. Or you yeah, I know, Imaginarium. Every time I'm like, we're gonna get out of here at 9:00, I'll be here till 4 a.m. arguing with someone. Let's some other things we could talk about. There's more Ukraine news. We could jump in on that. How about all of these judges that are rolling in on? Now we hear judges saying that Trump wasn't allowed to fire people that were on probationary status. So you get hired at a job and you're like on probation for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. Most of the time, like in my field, my particular company, I think you're on probation for 3 months and you can't take any vacation time or anything during that time. It's at a lower wage. Then once after 3 months, you show that, oh, okay, you're capable of being here. Then you're off probation and you're kind of treated like a regular employee. But you could basically be let go for any reason during the probationary period. Now, in my state of Pennsylvania, I believe they could fire you for any reason as long as it's not like against the Civil Rights Act or something of that. Like, I don't think they could fire you for being white. They might make something up, or being black or whatever. But yeah, you see a lot of these judges that are weighing in on all these stuff. And this is blatant lawfare. And again, I've said this before. It's not just judges, it's the mentality that you see from the left. The left truly feels that they're morally superior. So you'll see the same thing with juries. Like, there is no chance you could accuse Trump of anything. Like, you could make up a fictional person and be like, yeah, Donald Trump molested this person, and have a jury trial in DC, and Trump will be found guilty. And Trump's defense could be like, this person doesn't exist. They're AI. They've never existed. Yeah, he's guilty. And they would justify it. They would say, well, he's Orange Hitler, so we have to stop him somehow. And the judges are like this as well, and the lawyers. And at some point, the Supreme Court's going to have to weigh in. They're going to have to be like, no. Do I think sanctuary city-state is an insurrection? It depends on how it applies. I wouldn't call it an insurrection, though. Yeah, Tainted Holy. Like, again, as I was talking to, what was his name last time? Green Cloak or whatever. I'm not the biggest fan of the universal tariffs that Trump's suggesting. If it's going to be used as a negotiating tactic and it doesn't end up getting into effect more than a month or two, I guess that's not a big deal. My feeling is that Trump feels that the United States is on a precipice, right? And that precipice looks something like this, that the trajectory that we're going on, inevitably it's going to fall off a cliff. And there'll be people with golden parachutes, the very extremely wealthy, the people that are connected to power. They're going to do just fine. But the American worker and the average American is going to end up in a far poorer place than they are next generation, than they are this generation. But the United States still has some vestiges of being a world power. We're still top of the world. We're no longer the sole superpower like we would have been, say, 20, 25 years ago. So he sees an advantage in saying, like, listen, it's now or never. We need to bring manufacturing back. We have more leverage right now by threatening tariffs because we're such a big market for most of the world. And so if we threaten tariffs, they're going to not be able to hold out as long as us. And that'll give us advantageous positions as far as trade deals. Some of that is legitimate. Some of it is they're tariffing us, we'll tariff them. Some of them might not be that way. Some of them, it might be the U.S. sort of being a little bit of a bully, but just saying, hey, we're in a better negotiating position right now than we will be 10 years from now. So we're going to make do now. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I understand it. I understand countries doing that. You know, it's not as bad as like, we're just going to take your shit. We're going to bomb your country and take your resources. But yeah, you got to make America manufacturing competitive. That's right. Yeah, they charge him with murder if he said that the person didn't exist. Sure. So I think that's a lot of what's going on with the tariff stuff. And short term, when the tariffs go into effect, it hurts everyone. Well, not everyone. Some people directly benefit from tariffs. Jeff B for $2 says Hawaii federal judge ordered military can't attack Iran. Is that true? I wouldn't be surprised. Another thing, so these specific, I don't have time to sift through each of these specific court decisions. There's been like 189 at this point of cases that have been brought against Trump in his first 60 days. Excuse me. Here's another thing Eric Doherty just put out 40 minutes ago. Another conservative gets swatted. Sean Farish, Gunther Eagleman was swatted earlier today. Nick Sorter's father got swatted. InfoWars, Chase Geiser, a person from InfoWars just killed. It doesn't matter, Emily A. It's your call. If you want to talk Canada, we can. If you want to wait till tomorrow, that's fine too. Doesn't bother me. Is Sean the Trump? I don't know who Sean Farish is. 280,000 followers. Ungoverned is his channel. But you'll see things like that, swattings, attacks on Tesla owners, violence, intimidation. They'll increase. And it'll all be from people that feel that they're totally morally justified in doing so. Trump should sign an EO that says that swatting is a terrorism charge. Like the minimum punishment for swatting should be like 10 years. For real. It has to be such a significant penalty, and 3 or 4 people really have to like go to jail for that. Like for real, like 10 years. No joke, in federal prison. And then the shit will start to end. I mean, it's that serious. There's just no accountability. The chances of you getting caught are extremely low, and if you do get caught, the penalty's not that bad. All right, Emily wants to talk about Canada. Now, Emily, just to let you know, yesterday I was having some issues with the microphone business. So I'm going to try to use you as a guinea pig so the audience could tell me how our microphone levels are so I could get this worked out. Because the sooner I get this worked out, the better. So I'm not trying to be rude if I'm having mic problems. I'm just trying to deal with it. So let's just do it this way. Oh. And then I gotta... Oh, wait, 1 second. Did one thing dumb. Okay. I think we're good now. Emily, you there? I see that it looks like you're trying to talk, but I don't hear you. So maybe you're going to your settings, maybe you're using the wrong microphone. I could make me bigger if you want. See? When we do that. Does that make people happier? Oh, there we go. Emily's gonna get her setup fixed here, and then we'll bring her on. Okay, she's back. We'll see if we get it. Hey, can you hear me? Still can't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you at all. You're not muted, so it must be a problem. I could see that sort of your screen's lighting up like you're trying to talk, but Gerald, thank you much. Just Gerald, thanks so much, man. Just Jared. I always say always incredibly generous. Thank you so much, man. I had a friend in high school named Gerald, and he's I always talk to my wife about I forget where he used to live. He lived around here. So we'll be like in the back of the woods. And I'll be like, I think Gerald lives around here. She'll be like, would you shut the hell up? You don't know where Gerald lives. Let's see if we can get Emily worked out here. All right. It says that you're completely muted now, but yeah, maybe you're just in the settings looking for Nah, it's not going to be on my end. It's not StreamYard's doing it. If anything, that would mess with your audio and your end of what you're hearing, but it wouldn't make it so I can't hear her audio. The test shows you giving sound. Can someone else jump on Discord right now so we can make sure it's not me or something on my end? If I put the link out there, can someone... You only have to say a few words if you don't really want to talk. But we'll see if we can figure this out, if it's Emily or me. It shouldn't be me. The setup's the same as yesterday, and I had a bunch of calls, so all right, Green Cloak's on here again. Green Cloak, can you hear me? Oh, maybe it is me. Because I can't hear him either. How the hell is that possible? All right, give me a second. What? What? That's the problem. All right. Now, Emily, or Green Cloaks. Yeah, thank you, Green Cloak. Thank you, man. Yeah, for some reason it had my audio output as my microphone. That's not going to help. Can you? Yeah, look at that. See, I lost that debate. Here, let's get you on here. All right. All right, audience, let me know if you could hear her now. What's happening? What's up, Emily?
They say they can't hear me, so
No,
you're still the boomer.
They might be able to hear you now. I had to bring it on the screen share. Yeah, they could hear you now. So we should be good.
Okay.
Now,
so
real quick, before you go, let me know in the audience if our mic levels get disparate. But okay, I'm so sorry, Emily. My fault.
That's fine.
We got her fixed. So what's happening?
So first of all, can I ask the dummy that you were arguing with yesterday, what was his original point? Because I came in halfway through it.
I think he was trying to say that Trump should hold off on any sort of tariffs for 6 months until the conservatives win the election in Canada. That was originally what he seemed to be saying. He then sort of morphed that into, but it doesn't matter because conservatives will win anyways, and actually the tariffs won't hurt Canada. They'll only hurt the United States, so he's just trying to encourage us not to do tariffs to save ourselves, because if Canada wanted, they could stream down to Washington, D.C. and overthrow the White House again, and Canada literally has every resource they'd ever need, so they don't need the United States as a trading partner.
With our 64,000 troops, that only half of them are viable for combat?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was just someone that was emotional. I think that there is an argument to be had that Trump's strong position on tariffs in Canada is harming the Conservative Party there. And I think the Conservative Party probably was most likely to cruise to an election victory. And now that's in doubt. And I do think there's an argument to be had. I just don't care. For me, the better argument is, should these tariffs be occurring anyways? Like, for the sake of fairness, is it true that, as Trump's saying, that Canada's been taking advantage of the United States with tariffs and now we're going to fight back? If that's true, then we should fight back in the United States. If it's not true, then we shouldn't. But the timing of the Canadian elections doesn't factor in. That's all I was trying to say.
Okay, well, first of all, it is ruining the Conservatives' chances of getting elected, but that's not Trump's fault. That's because Pierre is mimicking liberal talking points and is, I got to stand up to Orange Man bad, whereas before he pretty much had all the same talking points as Trump. But once Trump got into office, something changed and he's a whole different person now, which is losing a ton of his base, because he's trying to cater to the retarded liberals who are just left of center, and that has lost the Conservatives the last 2 general elections. So that's his own fault.
Now, I sort of agree with you, but I always want to say Polyev, but I can't pronounce it. It's
Polyev.
Polyev, okay. Right. I do sympathize with him a little, because on one hand,
I don't.
For me, as an outsider, you tell me if I'm wrong. You're Canadian, correct? So you tell me if I'm wrong. As an outsider, one of the perspectives I get from Canadians is that they're in a similar position to how we feel in the United States, where we feel like the government that was in charge for years doesn't give a shit about the native population and citizens of the country. So in the United States, we feel like Biden cares about Ukraine. Biden cares about illegal immigrants. Biden cares about sending money all over the world, but he don't give a shit when people suffer a hurricane in North Carolina. He doesn't give a shit when there's fires in California. He doesn't give a shit when there's fires in Hawaii.
Fires in Jasper.
Right. And so I sympathize, where I'm like, I feel that's how a lot of Canadians feel. It's like, well, we're importing people that culturally don't really share our values at huge numbers, and they're sort of overwhelming certain areas in our cities, and we're more concerned with that sort of virtue signaling and all sorts of issues than actually, like, building up the infrastructure of our country and doing good for the people of this country. And I think that that's a fair criticism, again, from an outsider looking at Trudeau. The reason this makes it difficult is because Trudeau, and now, what's the new guy that took over?
Mark's Carney.
Mark's Carney, that's it.
His actual name is Mark, but we call him Marks for
there we go. Okay,
obvious reasons.
Right. It allows them to be sort of nationalist. right? I don't think they care about the Canadian people, but they get to
Oh, they don't.
pretend. They get to
They've
pretend to now,
already
right?
they've
Because
already
now,
stated that we're a post-national state.
well, right,
We
but
have no
think of it.
identity.
Now, nationalism previous, when the United States leadership's buddy with Biden with Trudeau, and I would label it as globalist, nationalism would be going against that globalism. Nationalism now could be interpreted in Canada as sticking up against the bully, the United States. So the United
That's what
States is
it's
more
always been.
populist, conservative now, and so you could still adapt that globalist Trudeau perspective, but be seen as caring about the Canadian people and nationalists, because no matter what, the average Canadian person is going to be like, yeah, we don't like Trump talking smack on us. We don't like Trump tariffing us. And so now look, the people in positions of power is sticking up for us. Maybe we had it wrong. Maybe they are nationalists. So I do
Sure,
sympathize with
but
Poilievre about that, because it's like, well, he's in a tight spot, because if he just says, yeah, Trump has a point, then he looks weak. And the Canadians are like, wait, I thought you were big Canada first guy. And so it's a
but
very fine line to run for him, I think.
he doesn't have to like agree with Trump on anything though. The thing that is specifically losing him the votes is that we have to stand up to Trump. We have to stand up against America. America are now our enemies, which is not what the actual conservative Canadian base wants. We want to stand with America because we know that America is heading into a period where they're trying to prosper, and Canada has every single resource available to help that prosperity. All we had to do was shut the fuck up and ride coattails. That's literally it. But all like he's going out there and just mimicking, like literally mimicking liberal talking
Well,
points.
I do think you're right about that. He needs to do a better job differentiating himself from the liberals. That I agree with. But I'm not so sure if he would have just came and been like, yeah, I stand with Trump. I don't
No, he
know.
didn't have to say that. That's what I'm saying. He never even had to mention Trump. All he had to do was continue saying what he was already saying, which was in line with where America wants to go.
But you don't think that the Canadian people would have been like, pretty much the biggest story in our world right now is Trump saying we're going to make Canada a state and putting tariffs on us? Do you have an opinion on that as likely the next prime minister? Like, he's going to have an answer. And his answer is either it's going to be some form, like there's basically three options.
The answer is fix the fucking border. That is the only viable answer.
You could say that, right? That's one possibility. But to sort of defend him a little, Trump hasn't really talked about exactly what he's looking for. I talked that guy that just came in to do the sound check, Green Cloak. Like I talked to him yesterday about this. I feel like if Trump would have just said, we're looking for this $50 billion of investment in border security, which will take the form of increased Canadian police or military presence on the border, increased inspections, a decrease from imports from China, and then it would allow someone like Poilievre to be like, yeah, we'll do that. Right. But instead, Trump's just like, well, you got to do something. And they're like, oh,
because
okay.
Trump is testing us. Like Trump is playing like a 5D game of chess with us. He's testing us. Like he keeps on saying that he's going to put on tariffs and then says he's not going to, and keeps on like pushing them further in the future. Right. But that's because every time he does that, he's exposing both parties exactly for what they are, for being the same fucking party.
Well, that could be true. I think that, like, again, I find myself in a weird position as a Trump supporter, sort of criticizing Trump a little here. I think what Trump wants more than anything is genuflection. I think Trump wanted Trudeau to be like, yeah, man, we'll work with you. You're right. We need to do something. Or wanted Pierre to do the same. Right?
Well, they should have.
Okay, but how well does that play with the Canadian base if there's an election incoming?
Okay. Since the 80s, we have known every single government, starting with a conservative government, which is the party that Pierre is the leader of currently. They have been told by the RCMP and CSIS, which is our Canadian Intelligence Service,
right, yep,
that the government has been infiltrated by Chinese diplomats.
You're right. Yep.
And every one of them has just pushed it aside. We literally have like Toronto Dominion Bank, which is one of our biggest banks, was fined $3 billion because they were laundering illegal money for the Chinese elites. They got fined $3 billion. Not a single person went to jail. And the governor of the TD Bank at that point was the person who is very high up in Mark Carney's Brookfield Management company that he literally just moved to New York out of Canada after he announced he was going for prime minister.
Well, yeah, you're right. Carney just moved back to Canada, correct?
Oh, yeah, after 20 years of not being Canadian and identifying as a European.
And now he's the big dog.
Fucking passports.
Yeah, I think you're right on this point. I think that ultimately the fentanyl conversation actually has a lot to do with China, right? And so, like, yes, you could look at the volume of fentanyl, and certainly it's coming, like, I think 10 times more, if not greater, from Mexico than Canada. But the problem's the same to Trump. The problem is in both of these countries, Canada's running roughshod and has tentacles all through the government, and they're basically allowed to do what they want. And so we want some sort of signal that that shit's going to stop. Right. And I think that it certainly does have literal to do with fentanyl and border crossing and things like that. But I think there's a secondary goal there, which is sort of we're setting up people to be like, look, you're with us or you're with China. Or that's what Trump's doing. And so he wants sort of a symbol of like, you're going to deal with what because I think you see that battle that's going to be upcoming in the United States as well. You're going to start to see a push for not allowing Canadian nationals to do things like buy farmland and investigating, possibly charging and getting rid of Canadian influence in our academic spheres. So I think that certainly you're right, that that's a big part of what he's saying without directly saying to Canada and Mexico. I would like more clarity. This is just me reading the tea leaves and assuming what's going on. Given that, if Pierre came out and was like, got on the phone with Trump and was like, here's the deal, man, we are totally prepared. We totally agree with you, right? We're totally prepared to help with that. I think that Trump probably would have came out and said like, hey, Pierre's willing to work with this, you know, and we think he'll be a fantastic PM. And he's going to be great for the United States and he's going to be great for Canada. And that probably does a lot to help Pierre. But instead, Pierre, I think sort of, maybe it's because he's going to be more of the same as Trudeau. And it's very similar to the old left side of the coin, right side of the coin here in the United States, Republican and Democrat, where it's like Labor's going to be, or that the Conservatives are going to be very similar to Trudeau's Liberals. Just like in the UK, the Tories and Labor, right? Where they're supposedly complete opposites, but what's really the difference? So maybe that's the truth. I mean, do you think Pierre's shitty, that he's really just like a globalist that's just okay, maybe that's the case. I don't know.
He's not necessarily, well, before he was spurging against the WEF and saying that anybody who was affiliated with the WEF wouldn't be allowed in the Canadian government. But it was fucking Harper in the last, like our last conservative leader just before Justin Trudeau, who made a free trade agreement with China, who has upped tariffs on us in the meantime since Trump has been saying he will and hasn't.
Yeah.
China has increased tariffs on us and nobody fucking cares because we're willing to give money to China.
It does seem odd that you haven't seen as vocal of press conferences from Canadian politicians in response to China's tariffs. Now, let me say this. Maybe in America, I wouldn't see that. Maybe the news is curated to me in such a way that I'm only paying attention or seeing things that are America focused. But would you say that that's also true in Canada, that you haven't seen politicians speak up as aggressively against China's increased tariffs?
Not a single one has even mentioned that China has increased tariffs on us since we increased tariffs on their EVs to appease you guys, apparently to appease you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly interesting because if it's just, I sympathize with any country in the world that everybody should have a government that's primarily for looking out for their own citizens' interests first and foremost. That doesn't mean that you want a government that's like, we're going to attack our neighbors and take all their resources. But I would expect the government of the United States to be looking out for, first and foremost, for the people of the United States, and the government of Canada to be looking out for Canadians, and the government of Mexico to be looking out for Mexicans, and so on and so forth. And I think that one of the struggles living in the Western world is oftentimes what you find is all of the leaders together are sort of globalist and they don't give a shit about the populations of their own country. And so you'll see these sort of, populist movements that'll spring up, but most of them are sort of cut down, like in Romania. Well, George Gasco, sorry, dude, you're under arrest, and you can't run for president, and the election didn't count. Oh, and by the way, we're now going to censor disinformation online, so people can't even bitch about the fact that we just canceled the election. Like, that's the sort of stuff that occurs. Or you get the two puppet syndrome, where it's like, oh, we got this globalist and it's massively unpopular with like Trudeau. So then you got this guy that comes up against him, Pierre. But on the important things, it's going to be more the same. And so for me, if someone, the way I would be looking at and saying, well, how would I evaluate if someone's really Canadian first that's running for office? And when it came to the topic of tariffs, I would say, well, they're bitching about tariffs against their country, right? Whether those tariffs come from the United States or from Mexico or from China. So if I see someone that's only complaining about tariffs from the United States, but not China.
Which haven't even been implemented yet.
Right. That would lead me to believe, well, maybe this guy, maybe it's not about protecting Canadian people. Maybe it's about some other agenda. Because if it's just about protecting the Canadian people, then certainly Canada or China's tariffs that seem to be more significant and already have gone into effect, you would expect there to be a lot of complaining about it. A lot of, hey, this is what we're going to do in retaliation. So again, though, I have to take you at your word. I can't confirm that you're correct or incorrect because I don't live in Canada. All I could say is from my end, I haven't heard Pierre or anyone else speak up about China's tariffs. I've seen people like you. I've seen individuals on places in social media saying, hey, what's up with this shit? I'm in Canada and China just raised these tariffs. How come our politicians aren't talking about it? But I haven't heard any of the politicians talking about it.
But if somebody said that, like, I think it was ML who said that we voted for. First of all, we maybe have voted for Trudeau the first time, maybe. But the last two times is quite indicative that there was serious Chinese interference in both elections. But even still, this last Liberal race for Mark Carney that just finished, nobody knew who he was. He didn't even live in Canada. He was over ruining the UK before he came here. But once he came, everybody coalesced behind him. They first said that they were going to allow anybody who was 14, and they didn't even have to be Canadian, sign up to vote. And then they changed that. They disqualified two different candidates for no good reason that they've actually given us because the internet was rallying behind them. And then out of the 400,000 Liberals who were registered, they only allowed 150,000 of those votes. And Mark Carney won with an 85% win rate across every single riding, including the ones that the other Liberals who are members of Parliament, because Mark Carney's not a member of Parliament. Even if he wins Prime Minister, or when he becomes Prime Minister, he can't enter the House legally because he doesn't have a seat.
Well, and in
the other ridings for the other Liberals, he still won at an 85% rate, which is not correct.
The other thing to say, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I don't have the specific details on what you're talking about here, but in general, like, okay, so did the United States deserve everything they got that was shit under Biden or under Obama? Right? Like the argument, well, hey, you voted for it, so you get it. It's like, well, you have to remember, oftentimes it's not that simple, right? Oftentimes there could be things, whether it be straight up cheating, or it could be huge amounts of money that are put into races to convince people one way or the other. Yeah, in general, I think the same is probably true as it is in Canada as it is the United States, which is a lot of people don't inform themselves and they end up not seeing how bad the situation is until it's too late. I know awesome people in my life. They're some of the greatest people I've ever met, some of the hardest working people. They didn't give two shits about politics. They just didn't care. They basically just wanted to be left alone. And when I would talk about politics to them, when we'd be out at the bar or just hanging out at a cookout or something like that, I don't really want to hear Rob. Till COVID hit. Then all of a sudden when they were told, hey, you can't go see your mom in the nursing home, you can't go to work, you're non-essential. Holy shit, now they cared. They cared now. Now, all of a sudden, voting was a big deal. Politics was a big deal. No, I would have never deigned to have been like, well, you guys deserve it. It's a good thing you can't see your mom. You deserve it. You voted for Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, our governor. You deserve it. It's like, okay, people realize it's a mistake now. So, yeah, on one hand, there is part of saying, like, if people vote for this shit. But on the other hand, how many people say that and will acknowledge, well, in our country, the elections were bullshit. I think the 2020 election was fraudulent, but I assume the Canadian election was legit. There was nothing going on there. So I don't, that's not a criticism that I make usually.
Well,
You deserve it because you voted this way, you know?
we know for a fact that in one of I forget which riding it was, but it was around Toronto. One of the ridings, there was a man named Han Dong who was a liberal who was going for the seat. And we know for a fact that they were busing in Chinese students from other ridings to vote for him. So that, like, we know that's part of why Trudeau prorogued the government before he stepped down, because once you prorogue the government, any investigations get immediately shut down, which is the same reason that he did it the last time when he prorogued the government and called a snap election, because we were letting Chinese officials or Chinese people who we knew were affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. We gave them the highest level of security clearance in our most protected virology lab in Winnipeg, and they took viruses like Ebola and others back to China and gave them away. And then we didn't prosecute them, and now they're in China and we can't do anything about it. Not that they would anyway, but that's when he prorogued government last time and called a snap election before the investigation got out.
Is there a conservative, or even, I guess, a better question, a populist government? If you think Pierre sucks, is there any like politicians of any sort of national recognition whatsoever that you would recommend? Obviously, probably at this point, I don't think any of them would have a chance to win this upcoming election. But is there any hope that there's like some sort of political movement that you think would be favorable to like the actual people of Canada?
Well, Pierre still has a chance of winning. He definitely still has a chance of winning. But the thing is, with him, like, equalization is a big problem in Canada. Like, Alberta is the only province that makes money because of gas and oil, which they want to cap so fucking badly. But Alberta is the only revenue positive province in Canada, and they send billions and billions of dollars every single year over to Quebec and Ontario and the Maritimes. Saskatchewan is basically falls even, and BC, every other province, and none of them have said that they are willing to address equalization. Like, out of Canada, the prairies are resource provinces for the elites in Ontario and Quebec. And we have a weird thing where Quebec has the Bloc Québécois, and they are they're a federal party, but they exist only in Quebec. But they had a very good chance of being the official opposition prior to this whole Trump thing if Pierre had won, because everybody was so disenchanted with the Liberals. But the Bloc will literally only vote yes when it is positive for Quebec. Even if it's just neutral for Quebec and benefits the rest of Canada, they will shut the vote down. They will vote no on it just because they're pricks. But so nothing will change with the equalization payments in Canada because Quebec just has too many ridings, and Ottawa will always side with Quebec because that's where a ton of their liberal votes come from. They also refuse to build pipelines. Like, during the liberal the leadership race, Mark Carney was in fucking Kelowna in BC and said that he would build a pipeline across Canada because our crude oil from Alberta goes down to Austin or somewhere in Texas. You guys refine it and then send it back up to eastern or central and eastern Canada. So which is why the whole cutting off electricity from Doug Ford is so fucking retarded.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was a stupid comment by him. You know, Pierre gives me vibes, and again, I see these viral clips of him. No doubt he's a talented orator. Like, sometimes when he's giving speeches or when he's handling questions from the press, it's very amusing. He's very talented of it. But the vibes I get from him are they're very similar to Boris Johnson in the UK, where Boris could light up some reporters. And he was saying things that you're like, dude, this dude's smart. He's sort of conservative. But when the rubber met the road with Boris and the Tories, when on the big issues of like sort of open borders for the UK, globalist bullshit, they were basically part and parcel. He could talk the talk, but then it turned out the Tories were shit. Like all of this hampering for like, hey, we need to get people in, protect our borders, do this, do that, after labor disasters. And I feel that way with Pierre to some degree, where it's like, yeah, he certainly can talk the talk, but is he going to like have meaningful change? And it's really a shame too, because one thing that guy last night I was arguing with, that he has a point about is Canada is resource rich. I mean, and if you had a government in Canada that was like, dude, we're going to open up our resources, we're going to manufacture and produce here as much as possible, I think the fortunes of Canadians could radically change within a generation.
We could literally be the richest country in the world.
It's
like that is not a stretch.
It's funny because like I think Trump is trolling with Canada becoming a 51st state. But to the extent that he wouldn't be, right? Yes, it's true that as is made up now, if you brought in Canada and it was literally one state, you would all but enshrine, you would enshrine Democrats winning. But as far as long term, as far as the economic fortunes of what that would mean to the United States, that would be like 50 times bigger than the Louisiana Purchase. Like the idea of the amount of wealth and resources that Canada is actually worth if you actually use those resources properly, it's damn near unimaginable. For example, I was just reading an article today about how rich Canada is with rare earth metals. And it's like, it's funny, we're entering into these negotiations with Ukraine with these mineral deals. And the truth is most of these minerals are in Eastern Ukraine, where even if there is a ceasefire and a peace agreement, probably a lot of those regions are going to be controlled by Russia, where many of these great minerals are. But then just up north in Canada, you basically have the exact same rare earths that would be looked for. But instead of trying to negotiate a deal, maybe you could say, well, with Trudeau, you had no chance to negotiate a deal because he's shit, so they're not going to exploit it. But, it just goes to show.
Trudeau was penetrated by Klaus Schwab's cabinet already.
Yeah.
But, the thing that I was saying about Mark Carney, though, when he was in Kelowna and said that he would build pipelines across Canada, literally 2 days later, he was in Quebec and in French said that he would not build pipelines to appease Quebec. But... what you have to understand about Canada is we are literally a narco state. Our government is not a government any longer. Our government is a criminal organization. They literally enrich themselves off of, we have been infiltrated by China for at least 30 years. Mostly in Vancouver, it started. Whereas Vancouver has Richmond and Burnaby, which is basically Vancouver, has the largest expat population of Chinese people. And what they do is with the United National or the United whatever, I forget. Anyway, they have elites from China come. We literally have police stations to keep the expat population in line. We have underground banks that the Chinese people, they give the money in China to criminals, and then they come here and they go to casinos or currency exchanges, and they are literally given hockey bags full of $20 bills. And then they go into the casino, they gamble for a little while, take the chips out, put them into banks and buy property that absolutely nobody lives in. Which is what has skyrocketed but we also we check 1% of the shipments coming into Canada. Our ports are run by criminals. We supply about 70% of the methamphetamine to Australia. You can literally buy fentanyl off of the internet in Canada, and they tout how safe it is. And then it is delivered to you by the state-funded postal service.
It's crazy.
We get the precursors to fentanyl sent here from China. We produce it. and then we distribute it to the world and our government profits off of it. We are literally the most, like, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. The only thing is, like, you say that it's worse in Mexico. It's not. It is, there is, you guys have more people coming in from Mexico. Like, you guys had more criminals coming in from Mexico, and you might have had a lot of drugs coming in from Mexico. But the quality, like, as in hierarchy, of people that are coming in from Canada, you're getting the kingpins coming in from Canada, which is arguably significantly worse than what's coming in from Mexico.
Well, it's
And
interesting.
because of our, like, trade agreements, whatever, so many of the packages don't get checked, and we're just trafficking drugs. The only thing that I can say is that we get a lot of illegal guns from you guys. The vast majority of the illegal guns in Canada come from America.
Well, I do have to get running. I said I would be done here around 9 o'clock, but I'll just say this. I think that ultimately, whatever happens with the Canadian election, I think that the tariffs won't be long term. I think that Trump will be looking for an excuse to get rid of those tariffs, particularly with Canada and Mexico, and sort of because I think he understands that even short-term pain in the United States, even if it does have an ability to withstand it more than Mexico or Canada, I think he'll be looking for an excuse to get out of that. So I think that hopefully the Conservatives win in Canada and that their cooler heads prevail. And I also think that one thing that might benefit Canada is, I can't prove this, I haven't looked deeply into it, but I think a lot of the US funding through places like USAID is probably going to fund a lot of this bullshit you're talking about a narco state in Canada. And so if Doge is effective at ending that stuff, I think that it could actually help long term in Canada as well, because a lot of that shit will no longer have funding and it'll dry up. So, but I'll give you the last word here.
I'm not sure how much that actually is, because we launder billions of dollars through Canada in a year. But honestly, I think that the tariff situation, I think that Trump originally did it to help the conservatives, to help, like, to just put the liberals on the back step so that Pierre could step up and step into the position. But Pierre ran the other way for whatever reason, because I don't think he actually wants to win. But even still, I think that, like, Trump going back and forth on these tariffs is just exposing, if not to Canadians, but it's confirming to him what Canada actually is. Because even during the Biden administration, when Canada intelligence would join meetings, Biden's administration would just pack up their books and leave, because they knew that Canada wasn't trustworthy.
Right.
Like, Canada is literally the position that China has taken to attack you guys in their drug war and what have you. Like, if you don't think that Trump is doing this as to protect the American people, if Canada benefits from this, great. But everything that Trump is doing with the tariffs, I wholeheartedly believe, is to secure America.
Yeah.
Because Canada is actually that dangerous right now.
Well, hey, it was great hearing from you. I will be taking call-ins around 9 tomorrow, too, so if you want to call in, that would be fine as well. But it's nice to hear perspective, because one thing certainly true of rednecks like me, I don't get to hear a perspective from people in a lot of countries other than the United States. So it's nice to hear a perspective from people that are in Canada. I appreciate both the calls last night and your call. I think it really gives me a lot to look at and sort of try to get a bigger picture in it. So I do appreciate it.
If you ever want to talk about the corruption in Canada, that might interest you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it.
All right,
Anyway,
Way, I
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Maybe we'll hear from you tomorrow then. So
Yeah. Peace out.
take it easy, Emily. Thanks so much. Great call. That was good stuff. There we go. All right. Well, I'm going to get out at a reasonable hour. One more super chat to get to. Let's do that. I saw you, Moonlight. Moonlight says, I don't know if you've covered this, but I've always held the belief that tariffs are going to be really important to get manufacturing jobs here, because the AI will be taking a lot of white-collar jobs. I don't disagree. I think that that's absolutely part of Trump's, I watched this guy. Maybe we'll go through this. I thought it was very interesting. this guy who was a guest on Tucker Carlson's show that was talking about, he starts off a conversation about gold flowing into the United States here in the past several months. And how people were saying it's because of tariffs, but he thinks that there's something more going on. And that is that the United States is transforming from exporting dollars and the dollar being the world reserve currency to becoming a manufacturing champion again. And tariffs are part and parcel to doing that. And so I definitely think that there's a lot of truth to that. I hope that that's what's going on. And yeah, but yeah, Emily, great call. It is, I sincerely mean it. It's nice to hear from people from different perspective. Green Cloak from last night and that other bastard Canadian that was yelling about burning down the White House. That was fun. I enjoy those calls too. I think it's a lot of fun. I know a lot of people get grief when I start yelling at them and stuff like that. I enjoy that stuff though. I usually am not having a bad time when those sorts of things are going on. So to each their own, I guess. Not everyone has the same sense of entertainment as me. One thing I want to do before I go, well, two things. First is, if you enjoy my intro song, it's from a band called Track Tribe. It's just free use on YouTube. I should always do a better job of when people do cool things that help me out, even if they don't do it to help me specifically. I think it's important to promote them. Track Tribe has never heard of me, may not share my political beliefs or anything like that. I think that song that you got in free use for YouTube that I use for my intro and outro of my show is an amazing song. So there's their link, man. Check it out. If you're interested in looking any more of their music, I think it's the least I could do is point you in that direction. Also want to give a special shout out to my editor, Black Elk. His editing skills are getting better and better every day. Like, I'm watching the videos he puts out for me, and I'm like, damn, I look professional as shit in these videos. So it's all Black Elk, man. He's doing it. He's clearing up the face and all of that stuff. So thank you, Black Elk, for that. If you ever have any need of editing, reach out to me or reach out to Black Elk. He would definitely be willing for talk with you about consideration of what he could do for you, to hire him on. So I think that would be something that would be cool to do. He's fantastic working for me, so I can't praise him high enough. I think he's done a tremendous job. Lastly, a special shout out from the Crucible, Chicken Foot from the Crucible. The reason that I no longer look yellow is because Chicken Foot made me a filter to fix my color scheme up on my new camera, and I think it's been tremendous. I think I look way better. So thank you for that. I will be streaming at 9 a.m. or thereabouts tomorrow. It's going to be a call-in show. I'm going to try to chum in some lefties to argue with me. I think that would be fun. But we'll take any call on any topic that's within terms of service until I get bored with it. So if you want to call in and you want to talk about who was cooler in Fallout New Vegas, the cons or the Caesar's Army or the Rangers, yeah, I'll listen to you for like 2 or 3 minutes before I boot you. If you want to talk about flat Earth, we'll talk a couple minutes. Yeah, we'll see if we can chum in some people with some political arguments. But anything you want to talk about will be cool. So that's 9 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. The reason for that is it's my wife's brother's birthday party tomorrow evening. And so she currently has a cheesecake that she's making right now that's in the oven. And then we're going to make cupcakes before we go tomorrow. Because my son wants to make cupcakes. So that's going to be, we're in charge of dessert. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. I can't say enough about my audience. I think you guys are the best. Really, it's humbling. I'm getting as high as 200 viewers, sometimes higher. I mean, we're at the end of the show now. It's, what do I got? 189 watching on YouTube right now. Let's see, 145 now. That's amazing. So thank you for helping my show continue to grow. I got some things coming down the pipe. We got these debate shows that we're going to be putting up. They're not going to be live, at least to start with. It's going to be me reviewing like 20 minutes of debates and giving my input on how I think that debate's going. So we're going to start getting that together soon, me and Black Elk. And we're going to try to get on some other shows, some bigger shows. Tim Pool's show again, do some more work with the Crucible, Jake Rattlesnake. I'm going to talk to Alex Stein about maybe going to do his show in person and some more debates and things like that. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. And then lastly, I guess I'll say one more time, congratulations to two people that I've streamed with in the past, Prime K's and Admiral Gibbs, that are going to be on Timcast. That's awesome. I feel so happy for those guys. I don't necessarily politically agree with them on everything, but as people, neither of them have ever done anything to offend me. I think obviously Gibbs aligns more with me politically, and I think Gibbs is a funny guy, but I have nothing ill to say about Prime K's either. I think it's tremendous, and I tip my cap to them and wish them the best on there. Hopefully they have great performance on there. People like it, and their audience grows. I think that I'm someone who, believe it or not, is actively cheering for people in this community to grow, even if it's not me, even if it's not people that politically align with me, if I think that they're reasonable, good people. So more power to them. I think that's fantastic to hear that news. So I'll certainly be looking out for that episode. It'll be something that I'm going to be looking forward to seeing. So, all right, enjoy again this band Track Tribe. I'll put their link one more time. Enjoy the outro song. I'm going to go hang out with my family in the new couch. Probably watch the Plankton movie again with my son on the new couch. That's okay. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the donations. Thank you to everyone in the audience. We'll see you all at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. As always, have a good one.